I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Visitor Network TV and Channel 99. Welcome, Dave Fronzuto.
Good morning, sir.
Nice to have you back.
Thank you.
Your title is now Emergency Management and Marine Safety Coordinator.
That's true.
That's quite a mouthful. Let's talk about it. What's going on in the emergency management world?
Well, we're right in the thick of the winter storm season, and we've got another snowstorm coming this Friday, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to meet with you and share just a couple quick points for the public about emergency preparedness, especially this, and then I'd like to come back prior to hurricane season. We can do it again because the rules change a little bit for hurricanes, but primarily what we're most the information that we most want to get out there is people need to be prepared in advance. Nantucket folks have been dealing with storms for forever, and they do a really good job at that. So the prepare in advance, people need to plan to shelter in place. We like to keep people at home in their residence as much as possible. They're more comfortable, they're safer, and if they build a kit and have the equipment that they need, they can shelter in place. And then, of course, if we have extended power outages more than 4 or 5 hours, then we talk about opening the shelter at the high school and those sorts of things. But the best plan is to shelter in place. And they need a few basic things for that. Water, a gallon per day is recommended. 3-day source of supply of non-perishable food. Excuse my reading my list, but I don't want to forget anything. Battery-powered radios, flashlights, extra batteries, first aid kit. Pet food is a critical thing. A manual can opener in case the power goes out, you can get the food out. Garbage bags.
Manual knife, too.
Yeah, manual knife. Baggage, duct tape. Medications is something that we need to remind people. Make sure that they've got a decent supply of medications. And also, if they have to come to the shelter, we remind them, but they need to bring their medications. Family documents, passports in a safe place, and cash because the ATMs probably won't work once the power comes back. So the second thing that we stress is a communication plan among family members, so family members can stay in contact with one another so they know what's going on. And that segues right into the next section, which is probably the most important, and is that stay informed. Watch the local radio, television. Gino's put on notifications for us numerous times.
And we can go live, by the way, now, too, from anywhere.
Which would be great.
So if you need us, you just call us and we'll come down.
Okay. Local and Cape radio stations. The Public Safety Police Department, we now have our own radio station at 105.5, which we have gotten a little better at.
Are you the anchor of that?
Unfortunately, I do some of it. The chief does some of it. But it's a good way to get the information out. It's a good way to update information quickly. Of course, WACK. The Cape stations, we do a distribution to them with press releases, so you can listen to the Cape stations. INM helps us out. And then, I guess, the final piece is the town's website. We do keep that updated. They can go on there to nantucket-ma.gov under emergency management, and we try to keep that updated. And there's a lot of information that I have on there from FEMA and MEMA and Red Cross. And if you want to know more, certainly call me at 228-1212 or go on the website. There's a lot of information there that you can download. So that's kind of it for
the message is really be prepared.
Be prepared and stay informed. I think, and you've got to have a plan. You got to know what the kids are going to do if the school closes early. Where are we going to rally? Where are we going to meet? Are we going to meet at home? Are we going to meet at the Stop and Shop? Weather forecasting has gotten certainly better. Our notifications from the National Weather Service are tremendous. They call us and give us updates. We're one of a couple communities in the Commonwealth that have that feature because of our exposure, because of our flooding conditions, because of our isolation. we get a call from the director of the National Weather Service at 2 in the morning if things don't look like they're going to go our way. So that's a nice feature, but then that helps us because then we get the word out as quick as possible.
All right. On to the next, which is sort of a function of the first, but the whole issue of coastal management and the coastal management plan.
Coastal management plan, you know, the selectmen adopted it a couple years ago, and the problem with any of these plans, be it the harbor plan, the shellfish management plan, any of these plans, is the implementation. And we're at the implementation phase. The coastal management plan identified 22 critical areas of the town, not primarily, but specifically town-owned properties. And the three that were identified as the most critical were the end of Matticat Road, which at the intersection of Ames Street, we're very concerned over that because Ames Street is obviously the connection to Millie's Bridge and Smith Point, the end of Hummock Pond Road, and the end of Quays Road. So we've gone before Conservation Commission. We have orders of conditions to do work at the end of Matticat Road and the end of Hummock Pond Road, and I'm hoping that we'll get an order of conditions this coming week for the end of Quays Road. And the projects are similar.
Quays Road on the harbor.
Quays Road on the harbor, down from the land bank property, very badly eroded area, public parking area, good public access, supports a pretty large mooring field. One of the reasons that it came to the surface as far as the most critical is the erosion is very severe there. So we want to get that slowed down a little bit. And I think what people need to understand is that you know, we're not putting up hard structures. We're putting in sacrificial sand. The Jersey barriers that you see at the end of Ames, at the end of Matticat Road, at the end of Hummock Pond Road, those are going to stay. We're going to dress those up a little bit, direct the access, put sacrificial sand. One of the things that I've been stressing to the Conservation Commission in their presentations is you see it in many, many other communities. We need to get into the habit of putting sacrificial sand in prior to storm events so we stop the erosion and then the sand gets reintroduced back into the system and helps, you know, nourish the beaches both ways. But you're not building a groin, you're not building a hard structure. You're putting in a sacrificial dune to protect the end of the road. So signage, directing people to the other accesses, you know, plantings.
What has happened to the idea that was mentioned, that came up a few years ago, about possibly putting old railroad cars or something out in the ocean where the erosion is severe?
That comes back to surface. Railroad cars, they have concrete barges basically that they sink and they use, and you know, if you've seen, and I'm sure you have, the videos of that, they attract sand and hold sand very, very well. Right. And every once in a while that project or that idea resurfaces, and you know, it's been dead for a while, and it's probably something that needs to be looked at again. Because
the reason I brought it up was because I've heard that the rate of erosion there along the end of the Matticat Road, along Sheep Pond, along Arkansas Avenue, is among the greatest rates of erosion on the East Coast.
It is. If you look at the erosion rates through the Massachusetts Coastal Zone Management thing, you know, they're averaging around 11.5 feet per year, and that's an average. You know, you talk to some of the property owners out there, and they're telling me it's 25, 30. I mean, it's obviously an average. There's years where you don't lose any, and then there's years you lose 30 feet. But yeah, most dynamic. You know, the end of Main Avenue is a perfect example of what happened in this last January blizzard. We were actually talking to National Grid the last couple days about how they're going to reroute some of the power and things like that. But there's a perfect example of, you know, where there needs to be some sacrificial sand protecting the end of that new road, so to speak. But yeah, we need to be more proactive. And what I'd like to do is kind of make this seamless and easy with the Conservation Commission for other road endings, if you will. So it just becomes normal that we put, you know, berms of sand there prior to events.
It's interesting. I remember when I was a kid, during whether it was Hurricane Carol or Hurricane Edna, I think in 1954 or 3.
Sure, Hurricane Carol, I think.
I was a kid. Well, they were both right next.
Oh, were they?
Yeah, they were within days of each other. going down there to the end of the Mattocket Road. And at that point, there was a huge overwash from the storm coming over. But at that point, it didn't even come close. The overwash didn't even come close to Ames Avenue. I mean, I don't know how much has been lost out there, but it's got to be a couple hundred
Oh,
feet.
it is. It
at
is.
least.
You know, we've moved houses. We've lost. You know, we've moved. We've had to move houses, and it's like the end of Hummock Pond Road. I know there used to be an entire road of houses
Yeah,
seaward
right.
of where we are now.
Right.
So yeah. So that's the three erosion control projects. The couple other quick updates, the jetties reconstruction project, it's been delayed a couple times. One was for environmental concerns for eelgrass. The second time it was delayed was for a bid protest when the bids were awarded. It's a $10 million project funded by the federal government with Hurricane Sandy money. We're fortunate to get with Senator Kerry's help at the time, to get the funding. The project's back on track, if you will. The bid's been awarded, and we're planning on having mid to late March the pre-construction conference to set up the logistics of the barges coming, and then we're hoping to start construction the end of April.
So it will go into the summer.
The project's a year long. We're bringing in 35,000 tons of rock. We're basically deconstructing what's there, reconstructing it with a more formal base with side slopes and a relatively flat top, and then incorporating what rock is there into the new construction. So 35,000 tons, including what's there. The questions that keep coming up: will we be able to walk on it because it'll have a flat top? No, it's not going to be a paved or smooth surface. It's still going to have. So we're going to keep people
How
off that.
high above mean high water is it going to be?
Well, on the east side, it's the design spec was 3.6 feet, which was the old design spec from the 30s.
How much higher is that today than it was in the 30s?
Well, what we got to do was we got to add almost a foot for sea level rise. So we're anticipating that the east side is going to be exposed at high tide. It's not going to be exposed in a flood tide when we have 3
Right.
feet extra water.
Right.
And the west side, the design height is 5.6, so there's going to be a significant height difference there. But I think what people need to understand is it's going to be a lot more formal looking structure. It's like I said, it's going to have some wide base and slide slopes and a lot more formable structure. So the small boat cut will remain. That's always a question I get, and we're hoping, like I said, we're hoping to start the end of April on that project.
Easy Street.
Easy Street. Strange story there. We were on a very short string. We got a $153,000 cash award from the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs to do the permitting and design and engineering. We got that all done. We went out to bid, and we had anticipated starting construction next week, 15th of March, and have it done by the 1st of May. When we went out to bid, the contractors all called and said, we can't possibly meet these deadlines. There's no steel available. And you would think in a country like ours.
What does this mean? You're just replacing it right along the sidewalk, or
The entire, we're going to meet up with the Dealey property, to the north, and meet up with the Hurd property, which is that gallery. And I've been working with both those property owners. So we're going to replace the steel.
So how long a distance is it?
It's 128 feet. So we're going to replace the steel. What you're going to see different there is, from the seaward side, it's really not going to make much difference. The improvements are there's going to be a 12-inch high wooden cap that runs along there. And that's primarily for safety reasons. And the cap is going to have scuppers in it. What happens now is the water gets behind it and the water can't get back out. So the scuppers will allow the water to drain back in. The other important thing that we're doing is there's 4 stormwater outfalls there. Only one of them has a tide flopper valve on it now. So the other flooding that you see there is the water coming up the storm drain and flooding on the backside.
Backing up.
So we're going to replaced and repair all 4 of those with storm flopper valves, so the water won't be able to come back up.
Again, though, will there still be a flooding issue in that area?
I think it will, just because
high
it's so low. You know, we had anticipated raising the bulkhead. It really didn't make any sense. So the better fix was to put a wooden timber, nice wooden timber. People can sit on it. It keeps the baby carriages from going over the edge, which I was horrified over. But the funding for that was a grant that was approved at last year's town meeting. I'm sorry, a loan, a 20-year loan at 2%, which we got funded. So the new construction date is right after Columbus Day. In October 17th is going to be our new. But we're going to go ahead and award the contract so the steel can be bought and staged, and we'll start in October.
How long is that project going to take?
You know, I talked to the contractors. They're looking at 4 to 5 weeks. It's not really a big project.
128 feet.
Yeah, you know, it's $1 million project, but that's just because of the cost of steel and getting the materials here and everything. But you know, good project.
You've got one other project going.
Pulpus Harbor channel, entrance channel dredging. We had planned on doing it last year. We were unable to attain the required easements to put the sand on the beach in front of the properties along quays. You can't nourish 100-foot section and then stop. You have to have a continuous line. So we're dredging 8,300 cubic yards. And we're going to stockpile that sand at the DPW and use it for future beach nourishment projects. We've been approached by numerous people to sell the sand. We're running out of sand on the island. Some's being barged over. There are nourishment requirements for many issued conservation permits now. You know, SBPF notwithstanding, they have an annual contribution of 15,000 cubic yards. We're only taking 8,300 cubic yards out of this channel. The other important thing about this project is we'll be able to hopefully use that money in the future to permit and dredge. At town meeting.
You mean when you sell the sand?
Exactly. Permitting used to take about 3 or 4 months back when we dredged this channel back in 1993. Permitting now is 18 months. So, you know, longer time, more money. So we anticipate being able to have that, that funding available and use the sand as much as possible for our own use.
When is that project going to take place?
We'll do that this fall. That was the driving force behind this decision to barge the sand, dewater it, either sell it or store it for future use, because we couldn't miss another year. Right. We've got 250 boats that moor up there. They're making it more and more difficult for them to get in and out.
A lot of the erosion that's occurring to the east of that in the harbor is ending up in the mouth.
Exactly. You know, when we dredged it in 1993, we did 40,000 cubic yards. The way we're writing the permit this time is we're going to have a 10-year permit. So any time that it needs to be cleaned up, so to speak, within that 10-year period, we won't have to go back through this arduous, very costly permitting process. And we can do it on a 2-year cycle or 3-year cycle. So what we've done is we've done a dredge assessment for all the channels on the island, and put them on a schedule, basically, because again, the permitting is so difficult to get. Money's hard to come by. So we've done a dredge assessment for all the channels, and you know, we'll source the sand for the future, possibly hoping a funding source for the future, and that's where we're going with dredging.
Are you having fun?
Oh, it's a great show. It's a little bit different than what I did for many years, but you know, as long as we're making a difference and helping people out, it's great fun.
Good. Dave Fronzuto, thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
We'll get you back to talk about hurricanes.
Well, I hope not.